Well, first of all, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share my views. I think the very fact that Pakistan is being, considered as a venue for the proposed talks between Iran and USA underscores the importance which Pakistan has in terms of its relations with the United States, with Iran, and with the Gulf countries. And if you sort of contextualize this development, you would see that for the past 1 year or so, our relations with the United States have shown marked improvement. Compared to the Biden administration, of course, there has been a sea change in the direction in which Trump administration views the current government in Pakistan, its policy towards Pakistan. So this is a positive development. And indeed, we have had very good relations with Iran, a brotherly country, a neighbor. And, our trade is also increasing. And in the past few years, both governments have taken a number of initiatives to promote economic cooperation and trade and sort of, strategize their thinking on regional issues. Iran has been supporting us on the Kashmir issue, for instance. And we have taken a very, a strong position on, we have condemned the attack on Iran. So we have an easy relationship with Iran in that sense. And of course, as far as Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries are concerned, they are important for Pakistan. And we have been enjoying traditionally very good and friendly relations, brotherly relations with Saudi Arabia, with UAE, with Qatar, Kuwait, and others. So I think that positions Pakistan to play a positive and a constructive role as a bridge builder between United States and Iran. So I think, and Pakistan is not alone in these efforts. We have coordinated with, for example, with Egypt, Turkey, as well as we have had the support of Saudi Arabia and Qatar in these efforts. And now even China has publicly, endorsed this approach. Russia has also called for a ceasefire and for negotiations. So broadly speaking, all the important countries of the world support this initiative. And Pakistan is, I think, one of the venues, or maybe the only venue right now under consideration for these proposed talks, and which is a good sign for Pakistan's diplomacy. Well, I think that the things are moving. One can't say. You see, diplomacy and a lot of things in diplomacy take place behind the scenes. I mean, things are not made public. Of course, there is media speculation and this and that. Somebody has already arrived, or somebody is arriving. The social media and media gossip is going on. But I think Foreign Office has cautioned today to have patience and only go for the official announcements which are made by relevant governments, including by Pakistan. So, I was watching the TV a short while ago, and I saw that there is a report that the US administration has given a 15-point proposal as a basis for negotiations, and which has been given to Pakistan, and Pakistan has apparently transmitted that plan or that package or whatever, the blueprint, the template, to the Iranian authorities. Now, this has not been confirmed officially, but this is what the media is reporting. So we have to wait and see. As far as Iran's position is concerned, I agree with you that the gap is too wide and the trust deficit is big, huge. And Iranians have taken a very hard position a very strong position. And in fact, yesterday there were statements from the Iranian side that this is a dupe, a ruse, nothing else, a facade for, to sort of stabilize the oil price and this and that. Even the Iranian embassy here, tweeted to the effect that Iran is not doing any negotiations with the United States, etc. So my point is that we are still in that, in that stage, in that phase of uncertainty about as to what will happen. But my understanding is, and my feel is, that behind the scene diplomacy is going on, and there are intense efforts. So somehow both sides sit on the table and start talking. Because in any case, this war has to end someday. Whether it is 2 days hence or 2 weeks hence, it has to come to a conclusion. And when it comes to a conclusion, it has to be on the basis of certain agreement between the warring parties. So I think if this initiative materializes now, that will be a good augury for world peace, for regional peace, for us in Pakistan, for our diplomacy. And I think everybody will, have a sigh of satisfaction. So this is how the things are at this point in time. Well, the very fact that there seems to be an emerging consensus on Pakistan being the venue for these proposed talks shows itself the confidence which these countries have in Pakistan. I am sure that Iran would not be uncomfortable if Pakistan is a venue, because I don't want to sort of prejudice sort of the value of other venues which might also come up. I'm not saying that they would not be the right kind of venues. But you see, Qatar has had some problems with Iran, and there was a military encounter also between the two countries. So one wonders whether Iran would be, totally comfortable with Qatar or with other, because directly or indirectly they are also involved in this conflict. Qatar has the largest American base on its territory. So Pakistan, in that sense, is neutral. Pakistan doesn't have an American base. Pakistan does not sort of, have anything to do with Iran's sort of regional, ambitions, objectives. So Pakistan is a neutral venue that way. So I think if this initiative advances in the week or so in coming days, Pakistan could be the venue for these talks, and it will be a plus for us. No, Turkey is very important. Turkey is a brotherly country, and we have high respect for Turkey as such. And Turkey is also a member of NATO. So United States has those ties with Turkey apart from its importance and its position in the Islamic community. So all these countries are important. Egypt is important, but you would recall that I think about a week ago, the three foreign ministers, Egypt, Turkey, Pakistan, and I think it was Saudi Arabia, they met in when this OIC meeting took place in Saudi Arabia. So already they have been coordinating with each other. And for instance, if Pakistan was selected as a venue, I don't think that these countries would have any objection. But I was also watching a news item, and it says that Turkey is also under consideration as a possible venue. So whatever, if let's see what happens. This is not a make or break point in that sense. Important thing is that the warring parties should start talks. And there should be a cessation of hostilities. These hostilities should cease, they should stop, the oil flow should start, and Iran's genuine grievances and demands are also heard. And, some kind of solution is found. Because that is what the region desires, that is what the international community desires, that is what we desire, except maybe a few countries like Israel, which may not want this peace process to go ahead. Now, I'm not in a position to make a comparison, but I can say that Egypt is also important in the context of Middle East diplomacy, because Egypt has had maintained long-standing relations with Israel. Okay? Turkey also has relations with Israel. We don't have relations with Israel. So in the eyes of the US administration, Pakistan has acquired importance, no doubt. And while I can't say that one is more important than the other, and vice versa. So let's be content with the discussion which is taking place right now, and behind the scene diplomacy which is going on. And that is that right now the spotlight is on Islamabad. And if that happens, it will be good. Pakistan is an important country of the Muslim community and OIC member, a nuclear power, militarily strong country, geographically strong, an important country. So I think you combine all the important country in South Asia, second largest country. So one has to combine all these elements. Pakistan is important in that sense. Pakistan enjoys good relations with Iran, good relations with the United States, Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and other Gulf countries. So I think Pakistan could be the right type of venue for these talks. You see, it all depends on President Trump and the US administration. I think if he decides to extend his pause from 5 days to another 15 days, then I think we can hope of some flexibility on all sides and some scope for these talks to start, right? But the point is that if 5 days deadline is adhered to strictly, and enough space is not given to behind the scene diplomacy, closed door diplomacy, then I'm afraid that we would be back to square one. And Israel is continuing its attacks on Iran. In fact, a tit for tat is going on even now. And Israel would like this process not to succeed, because although both United States and Israel have not been able to achieve their objectives, out of this campaign, yet, as I say, there are limits of power. USA has also realized that despite being a superpower and the strongest country in the world militarily, still it cannot be the sole arbiter of whatever it desires. So I think practically speaking, President Trump has realized that there is a time to give negotiations a chance. And let's see how Iran comes up. I think Iran will also have to show some flexibility if the talks start, because what the media is reporting, that Iran has come out with 6 demands. And out of those 6 demands, I think some of them are almost impossible for the USA to meet. For example, winding up of the American bases in the Gulf. That is not going to happen. So when you start talking, and if you want a compromise, the warring parties those in conflict, they have to show flexibility in cooperation. It's give and take. It is not winner takes it all. And so some kind of flexibility will have to be shown. No doubt this attack on Iran was a clear breach of international law, international humanitarian law, UN Charter, and it is illegal. That way, Iran is totally justified in demanding compensation and in demanding to accept the illegality of this, action. So, so that is there. But we should hope that these talks start and, gradually. It's going to be a complex. It's a complex issue. It's going to be a very, very complicated process. Even if talks start, we should not expect miracles, because sometimes military planners and military strategists also, sort of try to take advantage of the pause such negotiations offer to sort of re-strategize and to remilitarize this and that. So I hope that doesn't happen, because this is going to be disastrous for world economy, for the oil position, for developing countries, especially like Pakistan, who are almost 80% dependent on Gulf oil and remittances from there. And we have this conflict also has a sectarian dimension, not only here, but also in some other Gulf countries. So I think this needs to be tackled. This is a sensitive issue, and this needs to be tackled very, very carefully. No, I don't think that is correct analysis, because, yes, it's a temporary relief for Russia, but Russia is already bogged down in Ukraine for the last 4 years, and its economy is also affected. This is a temporary gain if the oil has been allowed, Russian oil being sold. But I think in the longer term perspective, Russia would also like stability in the Middle East. Yes, there are reports that Russia is sharing intelligence with Iran, and Russia and Iran have a partnership of strategic nature. So one is not surprised that ammunition, drones, this and that, some technology, some intelligence sharing is being done by Russia. I'm not surprised. As far as China is concerned, I don't think China is that muted. China has been playing a part in the Security Council. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi yesterday spoke to the Iranian Foreign Minister and told him that it is better to negotiate than keep on fighting, because it's not in anyone's interest. China is also affected. China's economy is dependent greatly on the Gulf oil. So it is in no one's interest for this war to prolong and drag on. So overall, I think China is supportive. China also has, China had signed a long-term strategic framework with Iran worth $400 billion. But obviously, everything has gone topsy-turvy now in the face of this conflict. So, but China has major interest in Iran, Iran's stability, and its own relationship with Iran in economic terms through BRI and all that. So Iran is an important player, and China has economic interest in Central Asia, in Eurasia, and Iran is a key player, in that context. No, even if, let's talk of the worst case scenario. Is Pakistan taking on the responsibility to sort of mediate as such? We are a bridge builder. We are facilitating the talks between the parties. We are not a party as such in the conflict. We are not coming up with our, I don't think so that we'll come with some grand plan or some ideas for these warring parties. We are a facilitator. We are a bridge maker. We are a bridge builder. We are sort of trying to bring Iran and USA on a table so that they sit together and talk to resolve the problems which the United States perceives, like, for example, Iran's nuclear program and missile program and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, etc. So Pakistan is merely facilitating. If tomorrow Pakistan is not selected as the venue, then what? Pakistan tried, and with all good intent, with positivity, in a constructive manner. So if some other country is selected as the venue for these talks, that's great. But that would not mean that Pakistan will give up its proactive and positive diplomacy for the promotion of peace and stability in the region and to help resolve this conflict. Because this conflict directly affects us, if there is instability in Iran, Pakistan will be affected. There can be refugee influx. There can be other, unknown dimensions of this conflict which will impact Pakistan. So it is in our interest to continue to play this role, but we are not punching above our weight in that sense. We are just trying to play a positive and a constructive role and to make our contribution towards peace in our region. No, I think a ceasefire is absolute must. Without a ceasefire, you cannot talk about other issues which are on the table. So, I mean, the demands of 15 demands I have not seen. I'm sure you have not seen what those demands are. Or six demands which Iran has made, they have become public, not officially, but through media. So how are you going to bridge the gap? So there has to be a kind of minimum common denominator on which both sides have to agree. For example, Iran's nuclear program. Iran is already saying categorically it was the decision of the, Ayatollah Khamenei. It was a fatwa, it was a religious decree for Iran not to go nuclear, right? And Iran adhered to that. Now there is suspicion that Iran has enriched this much, Iran has enriched 60%, it can be. International Atomic Energy Agency has not confirmed that. That is the watchdog which exercise oversight and supervision globally over nuclear programs of countries. So IAEA is saying that Iran is not near to making an atomic bomb. So if that is the main bone of contention, then I think it is resolvable because Iran is prepared to give that kind of commitment. And that can be, legalized through a UN Security Council resolution or through a mandate to IAEA. So other things, and then of course the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, Iran is saying, I think, some kind of toll tax. There are precedents, I think, in Panama Canal and Suez Canal. Maybe a formula could be worked out in due course, I don't know. Other things, bases, withdrawal, winding up of abolishing bases, US bases, it's not easy, it's not doable. Maybe Iran will relent on the demand. So this is part of negotiations. So, but it's going to be very complicated. That's much I can say because it's not the trust deficit is too high, too huge. And American side will also have to show maturity and flexibility in approaching Iran. Otherwise, it's going to be back to square one, and the whole world will suffer. United States will suffer. Gulf countries will suffer. And there's a pressure from the Gulf countries also on the United States to end this conflict because they are directly hit economically, militarily in the long term. And they are all, partners of the United States. So all these factors multiple dimensions of this conflict, which are, I think, pushing forward this process of some kind of, now conclusion to this conflict. I don't know, but the power differential is too much. There is a superpower which is strongest militarily in this world. It spends nearly $1 trillion on its defense every year, and that is being increased. Then we have Israel, which is also, equipped in arms and has sophisticated technology supplied by the West, and also its own indigenous capability. So these two parties in the conflict are very strong militarily. Iran, out of its experience of the last 4 decades, has developed a very impressive military capability, which was demonstrated in this conflict, right? And I agree that Iran has reacted, to defend itself in a very impressive manner, in a very robust manner. And even these two big, United States and Israel both, which are formidable in that sense, they are also surprised and shocked by Iran's response. So Iran, and then of course the resilience of the Iranian people, credit goes to them, full credit goes to them, the bravery and the fortitude, despite heavy losses, men and material. The nation has stood by and sunk their differences and responded to this aggression. So I think this also will be factored in the talks, because the consequences of not arriving at a solution will mean that Iran could still hit American and Israeli targets. And Iran has the missile capability, Iran has the drone capability, and Iran claims that still, it still has some armament which has not been, used, and that can also be employed. So there is always a factor of unpredictability in a conflict, which is there. But I think it depends who blinks first. Basically, it's now a war of stamina. Will the United States carry on and attack Iran? Well, Iran will retaliate. And it will have its own cost, economic cost, political cost, domestic cost for President Trump, and the military cost. So I think all these factors are important. And I'm sure, it was a miscalculated war, action by the United States. They were not expecting the type of response which Iranians gave. So it was a miscalculation. But as they say, once bitten, twice shy. So I hope there'll be no miscalculation this time, and they will calculate correctly the Iranian capability to still fight on despite heavy pressure. Absolutely, Pakistan will be regarded. Of course, India has been trying to, isolate and marginalize Pakistan. So that has not happened. After that operation, Sindoor operation in May last year, you have seen how Pakistan's diplomacy has worked and how our clout has increased in world capitals and including in our region. The fact that Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, they are constantly engaged with world leaders, it itself shows that our calls are being received by these world leaders and importance is given to Pakistan. So I'm sure that Pakistan credentials and will improve once these talks get going, and if Pakistan serves as the venue for these talks. So it will be a plus for our diplomacy. We are not losing out on anything in this effort, okay?